Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy the story. Remember to like and subscribe. And now the story.
It was a sunny Saturday morning, and the streets of downtown were mostly empty. The only people who were out and about were either tourists, joggers, or workers who had to clock in on weekends. One of those workers was Dave, a security guard at the Global Tech headquarters, a prestigious company that specialized in software development and innovation. Dave had been working as a security guard for 6 months, and he liked his job. He got to wear a uniform, carry a walkie-talkie, and patrol the premises. He also got to meet some of the brilliant minds behind Global Tech, although most of them barely noticed him or gave him a nod. Dave didn't mind though. He was happy to do his duty and protect the company from any potential threats. However, things had changed recently. A few weeks ago, a process server had managed to sneak into the building and deliver a lawsuit to the CEO of Global Tech, Mr. Richard Jones. The lawsuit was filed by a rival company, accusing Global Tech of stealing their intellectual property and infringing on their patents. Mr. Jones was furious, and he blamed the security team for letting the process server in. He demanded that the head of security, Mr. Frank Wilson, implement a new level of security in the building. Mr. Wilson was not happy either. He felt that the security team had done nothing wrong, and that the process server had used a clever disguise and a fake ID to get past the checkpoints. He also felt that the new security measures were too strict and impractical, and that they would cause more problems than they would solve. But he had no choice but to obey Mr. Jones, who was his boss and the owner of the company. The new security policy required that everyone who entered the building had to show a valid keycard ID, which had a photo, a barcode, and a chip. The keycard ID had to be scanned by a reader at the entrance, and then verified by a security guard. If the person did not have a keycard ID, they had to call someone from the company who could vouch for them, and then fill out a form with their name, purpose, and contact information. The security guard had to check the form and the person's ID, and then escort him to their destination. The security guard also had to log every entry and exit in a computer system, and report any suspicious activity to Mr. Wilson. Dave thought that the new policy was ridiculous. He felt that it was a waste of time and resources, and that it would annoy and inconvenience the employees and the visitors. He also felt that it was unfair to the security guards, who had to deal with more paperwork and more complaints. He wished that things would go back to the way they were before, but he knew that was unlikely. He had to follow the rules, or he would lose his job. On that Saturday morning, Dave was assigned to the main entrance of the building. He had been there since 8 a.m., and he had only seen a handful of people come and go. Most of them were cleaners, maintenance workers, or delivery drivers, who had their keycard IDs and did not cause any trouble. Dave was bored, and he hoped that his shift would end soon. At around 10 a.m., a black sedan pulled up in front of the building. Dave watched as a man in a suit and sunglasses stepped out of the car and walked towards the entrance. Dave recognized him immediately. It was Mr. Jones, the CEO of Global Tech. Dave felt a surge of nervousness and excitement. He had never met Mr. Jones in person, only seen him on TV or in magazines. He wondered what he was doing here on a Saturday, and what he wanted from the building. Dave straightened his posture and put on his best smile. He greeted Mr. Jones politely and asked for his keycard ID. He expected Mr. Jones to show him his ID and walk past him, without saying a word. But to his surprise, Mr. Jones stopped and looked at him with a puzzled expression. "What do you mean, keycard ID?" Mr. Jones asked. "Your keycard ID, sir. The one with your photo, barcode, and chip. You need it to enter the building," Dave explained. Mr. Jones frowned and reached into his pocket. He pulled out a wallet and opened it. He searched for his keycard ID, but he couldn't find it. He checked his other pockets, but they were empty. He realized that he had left his keycard ID at home, or maybe in his other car. He cursed under his breath and looked at Dave with annoyance. "I don't have it. I forgot it. But you know who I am, right? I'm the CEO of this company. I own this building. Just let me in, Mr. Jones said. Dave shook his head. He knew who Mr. Jones was, of course. But he also knew the rules. He had to follow the policy, or he would get in trouble. He had to deny entry to anyone who did not have a keycard ID, even if it was the CEO. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't let you in without a keycard ID. It's the new security policy. You implemented it yourself, remember? Dave said. Mr. Jones stared at Dave incredulously. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He thought that the security guard was joking, or maybe testing him. He decided to play along and see how far he would go. Okay, I see what you're doing. You're trying to be funny, huh? Well, good for you. You have a sense of humor. But enough is enough. Stop messing around and let me in. I have important things to do, Mr. Jones said. Dave shook his head again. He was not trying to be funny. He was trying to be professional. He had to do his job, and his job was to enforce the security policy. He had to deny entry to anyone who did not have a keycard ID, even if it was the CEO. I'm not messing around, sir. I'm serious. I can't let you in without a keycard ID. It's the new security policy. You implemented it yourself, remember? Dave repeated. Mr. Jones realized that the security guard was not joking, or testing him. He was serious. He was actually denying him entry to his own building, because he did not have a keycard ID. He felt a surge of anger and disbelief. He thought that the security guard was stupid, or crazy, or both. He decided to put an end to this nonsense and assert his authority. Listen to me, you idiot. I don't need a keycard ID. I don't need anything. I'm the CEO of this company. I own this building. I pay your salary. I can fire you anytime I want. Do you understand? Now get out of my way and let me in. Or else, Mr. Jones said. Dave did not flinch. He did not move. He did not care. He knew that Mr. Jones was the CEO of the company, and that he owned the building, and that he paid his salary, and that he could fire him anytime he wanted. But he also knew that none of that mattered. He had to follow the rules, or he would lose his job. He had to deny entry to anyone who did not have a keycard ID, even if it was the CEO. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't let you in without a keycard ID. It's the new security policy. You implemented it yourself, remember? Dave said, for the third time. Mr. Jones was speechless. He was stunned. He was outraged. He had never been treated like this before, by anyone, let alone a lowly security guard. He felt a surge of humiliation and fury. He decided to make the security guard pay for his insolence and stupidity. He reached for his phone and dialed a number. Hello, Frank. It's Richard. I'm at the main entrance of the building, and there's a problem. There's a security guard here who won't let me in. He says I need a keycard ID, which I don't have. He says it's the new security policy, which I implemented. Can you believe that? He's denying me entry to my own building, because of my own policy. What kind of idiot is he? What kind of idiot are you, for hiring him? Get down here right now and sort this out. And fire him, while you're at it. I don't want to see his face ever again. Do you hear me? Good. I'll be waiting, Mr. Jones said, and hung up. With a steely gaze fixed upon Dave, he awaited the arrival of Mr. Wilson. His anticipation brimmed with the expectation that Mr. Wilson would extend an apology his way, reprimand the security guard sharply, and terminate his employment without hesitation. He yearned for the security guard to plead for forgiveness, beg for mercy, and shed tears in desperation to keep his job. He longed to impart a lesson, instill regret for his actions, and assert his dominance as the ultimate authority figure. But none of that happened. Instead, Mr. Wilson arrived and greeted Mr. Jones politely. He asked him what the problem was, and listened to his complaint. He nodded and agreed that it was a problem, and that it needed to be solved. He turned to Dave and asked him for his side of the story. He listened to his explanation. He nodded and agreed that he was following the policy, and that he was doing his job. He turned back to Mr. Jones. I'm sorry, sir, but he's right. He can't let you in without a keycard ID. It's the new security policy. You implemented it yourself, remember? Mr. Wilson said. He then proceeded to explain to Mr. Jones the rationale behind the policy, and how it was designed to prevent unauthorized access and protect the company from legal troubles. He also reminded Mr. Jones that he had approved the policy and signed the memo that was sent to all the employees and visitors. He showed Mr. Jones the memo, which had his signature and date on it. Mr. Jones looked at the memo and realized that Mr. Wilson was telling the truth. He had indeed implemented the policy and signed the memo, but he had forgotten about it. He had been too busy and distracted by other matters, and he had not paid attention to the details. He felt a surge of embarrassment and regret. He wished that he had not implemented the policy, or at least made an exception for himself. He wished that he had brought his keycard ID, or at least called someone from the company to let him in. He wished that he had not yelled at the security guard, or threatened to fire him. He wished that he had been more respectful and reasonable. But it was too late. He had made a mistake, and he had to face the consequences. He had to admit that he was wrong, and that the security guard was right. He had to apologize to the security guard, and thank him for doing his job. He had to ask for his forgiveness, and hope for his mercy. He had to swallow his pride, and humble himself. He cleared his throat and said, "I'm sorry, Dave. I apologize for my behavior. You were just following the policy, and doing your job. You were right, and I was wrong. Please forgive me, and let me in. I promise I won't do it again." Dave smiled and said, "Apology accepted, sir. You can enter the building. But you still need to fill out this form, and show me your ID. It's the new security policy. You implemented it yourself, remember?"
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.